WHAS 11's political editor Chris Williams has learned that expanded absentee, early voting, and more in-person polls are in the works. The working plan right now for Kentucky's upcoming general election. Sources described a working group's study that the State Board of Elections hopes to vote on soon after Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear and the Secretary of State Michael Adams negotiate an agreement. Chris is joining us live now at the Capitol to break down the latest on this much anticipated plan and some of the details he's been learning about. Hey, Chris.
Doug, I asked the governor what he thinks of these plans. We're going to have his reaction for you in just a moment. But first, let me tell you that there are 3 months until the general election. The Kentucky Board of Elections has a very delicate balancing out they're doing right now. How do you keep people safe during a pandemic? How do you keep the election safe and fraud-free, as well as expand new options? And just as important, how do you do all of that and find compromise in such divided political times?
At the end of the day, the outcome is going to be a safe election, a successful election, and an election in which everybody feels like their voice has been heard.
Board Chairman Ben Chandler expects a special meeting later this week to vote on recommendations from the working group. While he would not go into detail, multiple sources laid out what's expected to be considered. An online portal could be ready by the middle of this month, similar to that used in the primary, in which people could request absentee ballots. The portal would allow for a medical excuse, potentially including COVID-19 concerns. Kentucky law has strict guidelines for who can request an absentee or mail-in ballot. There's a debate as to when those ballots would need to arrive at clerk's offices to be counted. In early October, 3 weeks of in-person voting at clerk's offices would begin, but unlike the primary, there would be no appointment necessary. Early voting closes a week before the general election, and then in-person voting at polling places would take place as scheduled on November 3rd. Counties would be required to have more than one polling location, even though all involved suspect that there will be limited poll volunteers available. About 800,000 Kentuckians voted in the primary, a record, but processing well more than 500,000 absentee ballots taxed clerks to the limit. The board anticipates nearly 2 million will vote in November. That includes well over 1 million ballots mailed in, creating a big concern about workload.
It's very important that we have a successful election because people have to have faith in the outcomes of their election. Our democracy depends upon it.
It can be as safe as an election can be in the midst of COVID-19. And we've got to reduce the number of people who will come to the polling locations to make that safer. At the same time, there are some that won't have the means to vote by absentee. So we've got to make sure that we enfranchise everybody, that we have the largest turnout that we possibly can. And I believe that, yes, it is fraud-free.
Now we wait for the governor and the Secretary of State to negotiate that plan, then the Kentucky Board of Elections to vote on it. Sources have also told me that there is a suggestion that the clerks will have secure drop boxes for people to drop off their absentee ballots if they don't feel comfortable with putting them in the mail. And I've been told that there's an idea that those boxes could be under video surveillance to deter any efforts at wrongdoing. Live at the Capitol, Chris Williams, WHAS 11 News.
All right, very interesting information. A lot of good ideas there. Thank you very much, Chris.